My best friend sent me a screenshot late at night. I didn't want to be the one to tell you. It was a long thread of my husband's texts, not to another woman, but to his ex-wife. I still miss you. She'll never be you. My hand shook as I typed, are you still in love with her? Minutes later, my husband's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He read my message, and then looked up at me in horror. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am, needing to share my story. Maybe putting it into words will help me make sense of it all. I'm Anna, 42 years old, living in Chicago with my husband, David, who's 45. We've been married for 15 years. David was married before, to a woman named Laura. They divorced amicably, or so I believed. Laura moved to New York, and as far as I knew, they had minimal contact. Last Friday night, after a long week, I was relaxing with a cup of chamomile tea, scrolling through my phone. Out of the blue, my best friend, Rachel, sent me a message. I didn't want to be the one to tell you. Attached was a series of screenshots. My heart raced as I opened them. It was a long thread of texts between David and Laura. Messages filled with longing and regret. David wrote things like, I still miss you. She'll never be you. My hands trembled. I felt like the floor had been yanked from beneath me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I typed out a message to David, are you still in love with her? My finger hovered over the send button before I pressed it. Moments later, I heard his phone buzz on the nightstand. He picked it up, read the message, and his face turned pale. He looked up at me, eyes wide with horror. Anna, I can explain, he stammered. Explain? I echoed, my voice shaking. Explain how you've been texting your ex-wife, telling her you miss her? That I'll never be her? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture he always did when he was nervous. It's not what you think. Then what is it, David? Because it looks like you're still in love with her. He was silent. David, I pressed, do you still love her? He looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I don't know, he whispered. The weight of his words crushed me. I stood up, needing space. I can't do this right now. I grabbed my coat and left the apartment, wandering the chilly Chicago streets. Memories flooded my mind, our wedding day, vacations, lazy Sundays. Had it all been a lie? I ended up at Rachel's place. She opened the door, concern etched on her face. Without a word, she pulled me into a hug, and I broke down. Over the next few days, David tried to reach out, but I needed time. I stayed with Rachel, trying to make sense of everything. How could the man I shared my life with still have feelings for his ex-wife? I confided in Rachel about everything. She listened, offering support and a shoulder to cry on. You need to talk to him, she advised. Find out where his heart truly lies. Taking her advice, I returned home. David was there, looking haggard and remorseful. Anna, he began, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I sat across from him. I need the truth, David. Do you want to be with her? He shook his head. No. I was caught up in nostalgia. But I love you. I don't want to lose you. Then why say those things to her? I was stupid. I didn't think about how it would affect you. I was selfish. I sighed, the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest. I don't know if I can trust you again. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild that trust, he pleaded. We decided to attend couples therapy. The sessions were tough, unearthing issues we hadn't addressed in years. David had to confront his lingering feelings, and I had to decide if I could forgive him. Months passed. Slowly, we began to heal. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight, but with time and effort, we found our way back to each other. David cut all contact with Laura, understanding the pain it caused. Looking back, I realized that relationships are complex. People make mistakes. It's how we address them that defines our path forward. While the scars remain, they've become a testament to our resilience and commitment to each other. I stayed. After everything, after all the crying, the confusion, the shouting in therapy rooms, I stayed. We agreed to work through it. I needed to believe that David meant what he said. That he wanted me. That he was ready to let go of Laura. But something still felt off. Weeks passed. We were trying. Date nights, therapy, long talks at the kitchen table. But I kept feeling like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped. One Thursday afternoon, I was at home folding laundry. David was working late. I was scrolling through Instagram when something caught my eye. A post from a mutual acquaintance, one of David's old coworkers. It was a photo. A group of people out at a new Italian place downtown. And there, clear as day, was David. And next to him? Laura. Same table. Glass of wine in front of her. Her hand resting on the back of his chair. I stared at that photo for a long time. I didn't call him. I didn't text. I waited. He came home just after 11 p.m. Sorry, work ran late, he said, setting his keys down. They needed me to help with some last-minute stuff. I just nodded. How was dinner? He froze mid-step. You were at Giovanni's, I said, keeping my voice low. I saw the photo. He looked like he'd been slapped. Anna, it was a team thing. She just happened to be there. I didn't know, you didn't know she'd be there, but you sat beside her? Let her touch you. I stood up, my heart pounding. Are you lying to me again? No, I swear, he said, panic rising in his voice. It wasn't planned. I didn't even talk to her much. I don't believe you. He didn't say anything. I left the room. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to Laura. It wasn't even hard. Her number was still saved in our shared iCloud account. I texted, "Hi. I think we need to talk." Woman to woman. She replied within minutes, "You sure? This could get messy." I wrote back, "Too late for clean." We met that Saturday at a coffee shop in River North. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe an apology. Maybe a confession. What I got was worse. Laura didn't come in angry or defensive. She looked smug. I figured this day would come, she said, setting down her latte. David's always had a hard time letting go. I stared at her. Are you two sleeping together? No, she said quickly, almost too quickly. But it's not for lack of him trying. I blinked. What? Laura leaned in. He texted me first. After all these years. Told me he missed me. That you weren't like me. That he still thinks about me at night. I never responded at first. But then I thought, why not see where it goes? My stomach turned. You've been seeing him? I asked quietly. Not like that, she said. Just talking. A few dinners. I was curious. I didn't think he'd actually show up. But he did. Every time. I felt like I couldn't breathe. He always said you'd never understand him like I did, she added, sipping her drink. Maybe he's right. I stood up. I didn't say another word. I left the coffee shop, walked until my legs hurt. I turned my phone off. That night, I didn't go home. Rachel opened the door, took one look at me, and wrapped me in a hug. I told her everything. Every word Laura said. Every look David had given me since the night the truth first unraveled. I don't think he's ever let her go, I whispered. Not really. Rachel didn't try to make excuses. What are you going to do? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know yet. But something inside me had shifted. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was something deeper. Something older. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage, I was fighting against a ghost that had never left our bed. And I wasn't sure I had the strength to keep fighting anymore. I didn't go home for 3 days. David called, texted, left voicemails. At first, they were apologetic. Then desperate. Then angry. But I ignored every one of them. I needed space to think. To breathe. To understand how I had let my life become this mess. Rachel let me stay in her spare room. She didn't ask questions unless I wanted to talk. Mostly I just lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. On the 3rd day, I got a message that stopped me cold. It wasn't from David. It wasn't from Laura. It was from an unknown number. I thought you should know. David's been visiting someone else. Not just Laura. Check the condo on West Belmont. 3rd floor, Unit 3B. I'm not trying to ruin your life. Just tired of watching him ruin women. I stared at it for a long time. A prank? Someone trying to stir the pot? But something about it felt real. So I went. I stood across the street from the address for a full hour before I got the nerve to go inside. The building wasn't fancy, just an old 3-story walk-up with a rusted buzzer panel. I rang 3B. No answer. I rang again. Still nothing. I was about to turn and leave when I heard the click of the front door being opened. A young woman stepped out. Maybe late 20s. Long dark hair, hoodie, bare face, holding a little boy, maybe 2 years old, on her hip. She froze when she saw me. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I'm looking for someone," I said slowly. "David. David Hart." Her face changed. The mask slipped for just a second. A flicker of panic. "He's not here," she said too quickly. "Who are you?" "I'm his wife," I said, louder than I meant to. "Who are you?" She looked down at the kid, then back at me. "I think you should go," she whispered. "Is he the father?" I asked, my voice cracking. Silence. Then the woman nodded, once, slowly. I stumbled back down the steps, into the cold afternoon air, completely numb. I called David. He answered on the first ring. "Anna." "Oh my God, where are you?" "I know about her," I said. "And the child. Tell me the truth. Now." Silence. Then a sound I'll never forget. He cried. Not the kind of tears you shed when you're sad. The kind that come out when everything crashes at once. "Yes," he said. "His name is Caleb. He's my son." I couldn't speak. "She was a mistake," he continued, "someone I met during a business trip to Milwaukee. It was one night. But she got pregnant. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to lose you." "You already did," I said, barely able to form the words. "You were pulling away," he said. "After my mom died, you were cold. I felt like I was alone in our marriage. I made a mistake, Anna. I made so many." I hung up. I couldn't listen anymore. My world didn't just tilt. It cracked. Laura was one thing, someone from the past. This woman, this child. They were the present. Living proof of what he had done while still married to me. I sat on Rachel's couch that night, shaking, while she paced in silence. "This wasn't just cheating," I said. "This was building a secret life." Rachel stopped pacing. "Maybe it's time you stopped trying to fix something he never valued in the first place," she said gently. I didn't answer. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the dark ceiling and wondered how long I'd been married to a stranger. And what kind of woman that made me. The day I confronted David for the last time started quietly. Too quiet. I'd been staying with Rachel for almost 2 weeks. She offered to keep me as long as I needed, and honestly, I don't know what I would have done without her. But something inside me said it was time. Time to face him. Not to scream. Not to cry. But to get the truth, the full truth, one last time on my terms. So I told him to meet me at the park where we used to walk our dog. Neutral ground. Public enough to stop things from getting ugly. Quiet enough to speak plainly. He showed up, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He wore the same brown jacket I bought him 3 Christmases ago. I hated that it still brought a memory to mind. I didn't say anything for a long moment. Sit, I said finally, pointing to the bench. He sat. I stayed standing. David, I know everything now, I said, staring straight at him. Laura. The dinners. The child. The lies. All of it. His mouth opened, then closed. I don't want your apologies, I said before he could speak. I want the truth. I want to hear your version. All of it. And if you lie once, I walk. He took a long breath, then nodded. I never stopped loving Laura, he said. Even when I married you, I think a part of me kept her on some pedestal in my mind. But she didn't want me. And you did. And I thought I could make it real with you. And for a while, I think I did. I didn't move. I barely breathed. But I reached out to her again about 2 years ago, he continued, voice low. After my mom died, I felt broken. Like I had no anchor. And I thought maybe she could help me feel something familiar. I told myself it was harmless. Just texts. But it wasn't harmless. It was cheating. Emotionally at first. Then, more. My hands clenched into fists. And the other woman? He looked away. Her name is Denise. The night with her was stupid. A mistake I kept buried. Until she called 6 months later. Said she was pregnant. I begged her not to keep it. She did anyway. I send her money. I visit sometimes. You visit your son, I said, flatly. And lied to me about working late. Yes. You looked me in the eye for months, maybe years, and pretended I was your world. He looked up at me, eyes red. You were. But I broke it. I know I did. I didn't know how to stop lying without losing everything. You lost everything anyway. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my hand. Wait. Please. Just wait. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, I heard a voice, Rachel's voice, sharp, slicing through the air. I'll tell you what she's going to do. I turned, stunned. Rachel stood at the edge of the path, holding her phone, her face pale. You really are something, David, she said, walking toward us. Because while she was piecing herself back together, you were busy texting Laura again. I saw it. I saw the messages. Laura sent them to me. I blinked. What? Rachel handed me the phone. My heart sank. There it was, messages from just 2 days ago. I miss you. Can we meet again? She's pulling away. I don't know how to fix it. And Laura's reply? You don't get to play the victim. You made your choice. David stood up, stunned. Wait. No. Those were drafts. I didn't save it, Rachel snapped. You don't deserve another minute of her time. People were staring now. A small group of joggers paused nearby. A woman with a stroller slowed down. David's mouth moved, but nothing came out. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just looked at him, and in that moment, I felt nothing. No love. No hate. Just relief. I'm filing for divorce, I said calmly. You can explain to your son why he barely knows his father. And you can tell Laura whatever story you want. But don't ever contact me again. I'm done. I walked away, Rachel beside me. We didn't say anything until we reached her car. Then she asked, Are you okay? No, I said. But I will be. Over the next few weeks, everything moved fast. I found a lawyer. We started paperwork. David tried to contact me a few times, mostly emails full of apologies and regrets. I didn't respond. Word got around. Some mutual friends were shocked. A few said they had a feeling. Others quietly unfriended me on social media. Laura blocked me. Denise never reached out. Rachel stayed solid. You got out, she said one night over wine. That's what matters. But what stuck with me most was something my therapist said: you can grieve a person who's still alive. Especially when you realize they never really existed in the way you believed. That hit me hard. Because I wasn't mourning the loss of a man, I was mourning the version of him I built in my head. The man I believed I married. The life I thought we were building. It's been 4 months. I'm not over it. But I'm no longer drowning. I wake up in a quiet apartment that's mine. I go for walks. I journal. I cry sometimes. But I also laugh again. I've started to remember who I was before David. Before the lies. Before the weight of someone else's unfinished story crashed into mine. And you know what? I like that woman. She's strong. She's still healing. But she's here. And she's not waiting for anyone's permission to feel whole again.